Do we have
Action
sound now?
combat, a massive world, fully voiced storylines, the
There you
most
go.
modern open world design seen in an MMO. Guild Wars 2, at its time of launch, was the big WoW killer that got people excited. It was a
True. Absolutely true.
game that was new, it was different, it was trying to push the genre forward. It did wild things like foregoing a server being a server in a rigid sense, embracing a sharding model. The hopes were really high. Guild Wars 1 fans, however, were confused. But it had an explosive launch, and then fizzled away. Guild Wars 2, as far as I can tell, totally fell out of the public consciousness. Certainly not helped by ArenaNet's bafflingly sparse and ineffective marketing. Hopes were high for this buy once, play forever MMO, and while it play tested and seems to have launched very well, it just evaporated. That level up experience that was so new and fresh fell away to an endgame that existed but didn't fit the mold people expected. The usual MMO endgame wasn't
living
really
story.
there.
Absolutely
The near
right.
wholly horizontal progression system is not what people had been trained to expect from other MMOs. Its buildcraft-oriented combat design felt confusing, and longtime Guild Wars 1 fans, they felt like the extremely open buildcraft options they had fallen away, and that the competitive PvP that they had loved so much was no longer a priority. Guild Wars 2 kind of shipped without the Guild Wars. Yet, Guild Wars 2 absolutely did find a player base. One who played a game wholly different to the likes of World of Warcraft. And while I'm not going to say it was a sleeper hit, I do think it's a game that ticked along, all while developer ArenaNet worked on the next big thing.
It's gonna be
The fate of that
there's
is
gonna
actually
be a update to Guild Wars, a pretty big one, an expansion soon. I know the name of it, but we
makes
gotta
Guild
look
Wars
into
2's
it.
future brighter than ever right now. We do not have sub-counts for this game, but we do have quarterly revenue, which tells us all that we need to know. Be it subscription or the gem store, the cosmetics, monthly revenue will correlate with people playing the game. What's incredible then is that publisher NCSoft discloses this per game every quarter since the launch of Guild Wars 2. Let's look at how it performed. Oh dear. Box sales spiked in that launch quarter, but then the game settled in at around 20,000 million Korean won. Of course, it is an American game, but it's a Korean publisher. Heart of Thorns, their first expansion, boosted its quarter up, but not by a massive amount. And this matches many people's experience, mine included. I played this game for a bit at launch. Some people, I didn't, but some people maybe reached max level, and then they just wandered away. 2017 saw things get real bad, and while Path of Fire's really innovative mounts kept that existing Guild Wars 2 audience super hyped, revenue did kinda plummet shortly after. All while
The game is good, right? Guild Wars 2 is just... It's an amazing game, but it's got challenges, technical challenges that haven't really been overcome since the game's launch, and that really works against it.
Lineage 1 and 2 mobile? Look at these numbers. They made significantly more money. Path of Fire had a drama with mount skin loot boxes that sucked and was eventually redone, but the game's dwindling revenue explains why they tried that. Revenues were falling, and while 20,000 million won is about 16 million US dollars, that's a lot of money, but it's nowhere near what other NCSoft titles were doing. And worst of all for Guild Wars fans, they would soon feel abandoned by ArenaNet. They were thinking that not a lot of that money was going back into the game. Path of Fire released in 2017. End of Dragons releases February 2022. 4.5 years later? That is sheer madness for an MMORPG. And the main reason, I believe, is ArenaNet's other project. We do not know what it was, but we do know that 143 layoffs in 2019 signaled that project's cancellation. And from that point forward, Guild Wars 2 basically was ArenaNet-ish. They're rumored to have a mobile and console project, but the overall non-Guild Wars 2 team size decreased, and they put more resources into Guild Wars 2. And that is good news for the game we can actually play today. While 4.5 years of no expansion seems wild and technically is true, a lot of people won't know that they did actually continue the game via Living World, which had its 4th and 5th seasons. The 5th season was bigged up. It was branded the Icebrood Saga, and in spite of a lackluster ending that will have World of Warcraft fans thinking about N'Zoth, it did bring a lot to the game. This isn't just a bunch of small patches, it was bringing...
Question is, can you go back and play the Living Wars? Right? Can you go in today and play through all the Living War expansions? Like the game just came out? Because if you can, that will be interesting. Right? That's an interesting storyline that I like to experience.
Bringing out full zones, or maps as they're called in Guild Wars 2, that, for the MMO genre, are extremely innovative and really cool. Absolutely something other MMORPGs should look at. As Icebrood rolled out, the game began to feel like it was cared for a little bit more, like ArenaNet were putting more resources in. And that's what takes us to today, just before the release of End of Dragons. Revisit the revenue chart, and you will see that Guild Wars 2 has been stable, but low-ish in terms of its revenue. Icebrood Saga has kept people there. But as World of Warcraft's explosive business model shows us, there is nothing like a heavily marketed expansion to inject life back into an MMO. Marketing, of course, is something that ArenaNet are frankly a little bit useless at. As of the time of writing, the community is actually frustrated at End of Dragons' February 2022 launch window and the vague way that ArenaNet have been handling things there. And a constant thing that I hear from Guild Wars 2 influencers is bafflement at the marketing, and I can see why. And that takes us to today. End of Dragons is going to come out. I am diving into Guild Wars 2. Now that we have a brief history of Guild Wars 2, the horizontal progression MMO with a pretty neat world v world system, an MMO that hasn't had major power creep and has had the same level cap for a decade. It's the MMO that does things differently. Maybe so differently that MMO gamers conditioned by the rest of the market could hardly see how they themselves fit into the game's mold. So, it's time to see if I can stuff myself into that mold.
Alright. Good luck with that. However, that's going to be a fun experience for you. I might just re-download the game. I had a character that, if I remember correctly, a thief. Max level. That'll be a fun experience. Alright, let's go back into grinding the shit out of this double XP. Give me some music. Motherfucker. What? Nice spawn squad. Ran out of bullets. Oh, of course I ran out of bullets. What? I'm gonna take a break. I'll see you guys in a little bit.